Almost 2 weeks ago at a rally in Alabama, President Trump went off script and called for NFL owners to bench or fire players who kneel during the national anthem prior to the beginning of football games. Last year, former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick drew national attention by kneeling during the Star-Spangled Banner. Yet, this season he is without a team. Last Monday, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders fielded multiple questions on Trump's escalating feud with the NFL. She defended President Trump's criticism of the NFL's anthem protesters, saying it is, quote, always appropriate for the President of the United States to defend the flag and the national anthem. Trump tweeted this past Saturday saying, very important that NFL players stand tomorrow and always for the playing of our national anthem, respect our flag and our country. So like I said before we went to commercial break, this story has pretty much been on the front page of every major news outlet, online and in print. I can probably say that it's been the top story for the last 2 weeks on almost every news show on TV. So Micah, I'm going to throw it over to you first. As we talked about last segment, this story has kind of been pushing out other important stories that have been going on in the political world. Do you think that this is benefiting Trump running the news cycle again?
I think it definitely is benefiting him because he is able to, again, push his agenda out that he wants, obviously, patriotism to be important, which it is. But at the same time, I think if he could learn to agree to disagree, because I think we have a group of very concerned African Americans and minorities who say, hey, we have concerns that we need to get out there too. And it's been sort of like a headbutt with him and with the NFL players who say, hey, we need to be able to have the choice. Because it's not just them, we have other religious groups and other people who do sit down during the national anthem, who do want to express their religious rights to their freedom of religion. And so I think it's important that he have that agree to disagree. But I do think, unfortunately, he has taken control again. What I don't really like about this, about his action, and I understand he's very forceful about the flag and he's very forceful about patriotism. Having several veterans in my family also feel very forceful about the flag too. But I do not think it is right for him to call someone an SOB because they do not stand for the flag. I do not think that is appropriate. He doesn't know them. He doesn't know them personally. He doesn't know what they've gone through. He needs to but he's, of course, the president. He can do what he wants.
Right.
But again, yes, he's taking control and he's sort of steered the agenda toward his advantage again.
And I will agree with you there, and that a lot of people, a lot of political commentators have agreed that a lot of them think he went off script during the campaign rally, that this was not planned.
Yes, definitely. He definitely did.
But I will agree with you that I think using the SOB term took it a little far.
Yeah.
So, but going off of that, Amber, many say that this is obviously, and it already has, going to trickle down into college football games, high school football games, maybe even Little League games eventually. And the Leaf Chronicle even talked to our own football coach here at Austin Peay, Coach Healy. So what's your take on how it's going to affect, younger players throughout football?
Personally, I don't think it should affect Little League because we shouldn't be talking to children about how they should view politics, as they are malleable and they need to be able to make their own decisions when they're older. However, for high schoolers, college students, people who are possibly not in professional leagues but do kneel during the national anthem no matter what sports team they are, I feel like this is a necessary way of peaceful protest. This is part, as we were talking earlier, the Second Amendment. It says that we have the right to carry firearms. Our First Amendment tells us we have the right for peaceful protest. This is a peaceful protest against an unfair federal government in the eyes of the people who are kneeling. I feel that people who are in high school and above have the ability to actually look and critically think and agree or disagree with our federal government. And by kneeling for the national anthem, kneeling when our flag is being raised, is a way of showing that. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. I feel like this is something that we have been given the right to the entire time that we've been American citizens. And now that they're using it, people are getting mad, but that's just what you have to do. I'm not going to say if I'm for or against it, but I'm going to say I'm for people having the rights that they should be given under God.
So, Christian, are the NFL and these players fighting a losing battle?
I can't. I guess I'd like to specify the battle, because My issue with the entire thing is the motive. Before President Trump came out and said what he said, the number of players, coaches, whoever you want to say, that were kneeling for the national anthem was much, much lower than what it eventually turned into. You look at the motive of these players, and we can go back to Colin Kaepernick and him saying that he was upset about the shootings with police and the racial injustice. If you look at FBI statistics, it's a total lie, but okay. If we're talking about the players that did it just 2 weeks ago, there was about 157 total that actually kneeled or sat. That doesn't include the players that stayed in the locker rooms and things like that. My argument is that the motive was wrong. They would not have done that given President Trump not saying what he had said. If you want to protest racial injustice, protest that. Kneel for the national anthem if you feel that, although I disagree with that as well. But if that's how you're going to protest, do it that way. Now, that being said, you look at the week after or the weeks before, why not then? Why only kneel when the president says what he's going to say? Because obviously now, you're not kneeling for the right reasons. You're kneeling because he called you an SOB and you're offended. Fine. But that being said, if you look back at previous weeks, why didn't you take a knee then? Why didn't you take a knee then? Your motive is wrong. Your motive is no longer what it was to begin with.
Well, do you think it's the platform that they're using? Do you think the platform like, hey, I have this nationally televised game that I can, kneel and show people this is how I feel? They're using the platform maybe in a way, because I was listening to BBC Radio talking about this too. They were saying maybe it would be better if these players would take the off season to get their feelings out there instead of using some nationally televised game to get their personal feelings out there.
Yeah, and using their platform is not an issue to me. I think that people should, especially, even if you're a sports anchor, I have no issue with you talking politics. You're not just a sports figure. You have a life too, and you have feelings. I totally get that. But it's when they did it and why they did it is what I'm upset about. And using that platform is not necessarily an issue. But when you take a knee and you come out and you talk about the president, to me, you're taking a knee at the president. You're not taking a knee at the flag. Because you didn't weeks prior, and you don't now. You've chose to just stand right back up. But out of retaliation the night before, all the NFL owners were dared by President Trump. And normally, rich old men get upset when they are dared. So they turn right back. So they turn right. The rich old men being the NFL owners. The rich old men being the NFL owners. They get upset when they're told to do something. President Trump straight up said, "Fire them. Get rid of the players who kneel." So they turn around and they say, "You know what? We'll just kneel right with them. We'll just do the exact opposite. Don't tell us what to do." Jerry Jones coming out on the field, kneeling right before the national anthem with the team. I get that wasn't during the national anthem, but he's proving a point, and that's where I'm upset.
I feel like he's proving a point of solidarity, though.
Not me.
See, that's how
are these a bunch of rich crybabies? Honestly, they're a bunch of rich players and owners who get all this money and then they're whining and complaining. I look at it that way too. Yeah. It's like, what do you have to complain about? Take your personal time to talk about this.
Well, and still, I see there's a lot of stuff I want to comment here. Going off of the platform thing, you have to think of it as these football players on Sundays, they're at work. Right. They're in uniform, and when they're in uniform, they're at work. Just like university faculty here, when they're at work, they're not able to use their position as a political platform.
Right.
And I would like to know the last time the majority of these players, went out and did something about these social injustices, wrote their congresmen or senators about the issues
let alone
that they're talking
vote.
about.
Colin Kaepernick did not even
sat
vote.
on a jury, you know what I mean, that are out there. So I see where a lot of people are seeing them as these rich crybabies.
But I can kind of see where you're coming from, Micah, in that they are a group of people who are very much well off and can pretty much do what they want in this situation. But I also kind of see the other side of this in that they might be in uniform and they might be at work. What about all the other people who go into work and talk about politics? Talking about politics in the workplace isn't something that's unheard of. And the fact that they have a larger platform doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to discuss it. And it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to protest it. In fact, it should be a way that they should be able to get their voices heard even more just because they are in this position now. So don't they have more of an obligation to show what many people are feeling?
Well, and I don't think that it shouldn't be able to be discussed. I think that was one thing that I really liked about the Leaf Chronicles article that they did on Will Healy, is that, you know, he said that yes, they do have an open locker room here at Austin Peay, and I think that should be it, that the coaches should be comfortable discussing difficult topics with their players. But I don't think the field and the sidelines is the place for them to do this.
Yeah, I just kneeling in general to me is a huge sign of disrespect, and whether people want to believe it or not, our flag does stand for our nation. If it didn't, we wouldn't hold it up at the Olympics. Other countries would not hold it up at the Olympics. They wouldn't hold it up at just about anything that involves their country participating in something else. And because this represents our country, you are choosing to protest the representation of our country. And if you are upset with it, I am more than willing to tell you you can get out, because it does not bother me. If you don't want it, don't accept your paycheck. There are multiple countries that have professional sports, but nobody gets paid like they do here in the United States. The only one that even comes close is over in Europe. Soccer players are paid outstanding amounts, and even in Central American, South American countries. That being said, across the board, people come here to play professional sports because the United States has freedoms that other countries don't. Because we have the profits, we have the crowds that draw and come in for these type of things, and for them to kneel and protest against the very thing that allows them to eat is just.
They're not protesting their sport, though. They're protesting the things that are happening across the country that they're not able to help with because of the position that they're now in.
Is the kneeling helping with it? Is it helping for unity, or is it causing divisiveness?
Do we want unity in a country that half of it hates the other half?
But
how are we going to be able to do that if we're not showing protest?
But I think you have to unify in order to fix the issue.
Yeah, and when you've got 4 and 5 and 10 and 20 players kneeling, and it's funny because it's not just a race thing either. It's not just a race thing. It cracks me up that people want to take it into a race thing, because this is not black and white. This is all across the board. You have white men, grown men, kneeling right next to an African American man,
because they support that minority.
But that very minority is standing with his hand on his heart right next to him.
Yes, because they do not agree.
And that's what's funny to me.
It doesn't matter if you're black or white. It matters if you agree that there is a problem.
Yeah, well,
and I agree that there is a problem in this country against race.
I don't think it's necessarily that there's not a problem. I think there is a problem too. I just don't think that our flag represents that entire problem. I see our flag as something else. We don't, I mean, and once again, I guess you could say that's subjective. That goes right back to why we're the country that we are.
Well, let's move on to the next question. I want to take this one around the table, but many feel that the Democrats are kind of picking and choosing when they can say that athletes and athletic coaches are, cheerleaders of the First Amendment, because, not too long ago they were chastising Tim Tebow for taking a knee and praying on the field, and recently they've been chastising coaches for having prayer with their players before games. But now all of a sudden, when NFL players protest and disrespect the flag, they're considered heroes. So what do you take on that, Micah?
I feel like it's just where the Democrats kind of like to make it fit their purpose, and so they want to draw attention to themselves and say, hey, this is great, this is awesome and everything. And of course, people who feel like, oh, well, that's not great, that's insulting the flag. I mean, I have several very conservative family members, again, several veterans of my family who say this is wrong. This flag means whatever I went and did in World War II was, not worth anything. Whatever I did in Vietnam was not worth anything. And so it's very hurtful. But I just feel like it's the Democrats using this issue to push their agenda through. Yeah.
Amber?
I agree with that as well, honestly. And I will sit here and say that I am a middle of the road person. I will go either way. But in this situation, many Democratic politicians have been using this kneeling protest as a way to get more views on them, to get better, publicity for them. Whereas we have the right for free speech, and so Tim Tebow kneeling and praying when he felt that it was necessary should also be allowed and should not be criticized, as well as players who pray with their coaches. I feel like both should be allowed and both should be free to do, but I also feel like all of this should not be as publicized as it is, simply because we have many other problems in this country that we need to deal with before we deal with a bunch of football players taking a knee for a protest that they're not even doing anything for.
I do find it a little bit funny that is the main story and that it's taken as far as it is because although I'm passionate about hoping that people would stand and respect the flag, at the same time I look at that and that's such a minuscule argument versus everything else. But since we are talking about the politicians and especially the liberal side of things, up in Oregon not too long ago, just about over a year ago, a high school coach was fired because just before a game he was told, if you go out on the middle of the field after the game and you pray with your team, we will fire you. And that's exactly what they did. And so I forget the name of the lawyer that took care of it, but he said, I will represent you till the very end for your First Amendment rights, because for a school system to fire you over your team's willingly coming out to the field, he was not forcing, he was willingly offering. They said that's not your place.
Quickly, I want to ask this around the table before we go to break, but Micah and everybody, will the NFL cave, or how much longer do you think this will go on?
I think it'll go on as long as you have politicians going, yay, Rod, this is great for us, this helps further whatever our agenda is. I think as long as you have, people who, like Trump, who are tweeting about it every now and again, I think as long as people keep tuning in, again, the NFL ratings were kind of floundering, and now, hey, people are tuning in because, hey, we got this controversy to talk about, so.
Gamber.
I feel like this is going to continue to go on as long as we continue to give it airtime. This is something that's going to continue to be a problem for the weeks to come because people are going to keep talking about it. And as far as sponsors go, we're going to see more come out of the woodwork, but it's going to be political sponsors that are going to come and sponsor the NFL and these teams that are having these players kneel before we're going to see the NFL give to anything like this. Because I feel like if they give and they tell these players to stop, then we're going to see more problems. And I'm pretty sure they know that. And like Christian would agree, I feel like this is the best marketing scheme that could have ever come out of the NFL.
Interesting take. Well, we all here at Politically Challenged want to thank you for joining us, and you can catch us on our YouTube channel at APSU-TV, and we hope you'll join us next time. Thanks.